So let's just move on to the next quickly to the next question. So in terms of how do
Yeah.
you, okay, this is like you've talked about all these issues. How do we go to the corrective measures? Okay, for example, underrepresentation of minorities in these models. How do you see this, say, in the
Mm-hmm.
10 years? What what could be done? I mean, you're working in the public sector, policy.
Right,
How
right,
there's already a
right,
digital divide. Now there's going to be AI divide. People who use
right,
AI,
right,
people who
right.
don't use AI, and who get like their answers more into the system, and whose answer doesn't get into the system because of representation, right? As you mentioned.
Mm,
How do you think this can
right.
be slowly because
Yeah.
at end of the day, this is an equity it's an equitable kind of data equity kind of issue,
Mm,
right? Like we need
right,
more
right,
people. Like I mean, India did do to be honest, I mean, or to give credit to India, they did do a
mm,
big time revolution with mobile like internet, right? It
right,
gave everybody
right.
access, Paytm and not Paytm, sorry, like digital payments and all that kind of boomed because of this revolution, right?
Mm,
And we went mobile
right,
first compared to the rest of the world. So that's
right.
a good story. So we might have a positive story at some point, maybe with AI. But
Mm-hmm.
do you see anything
Mm.
along those lines? Like
Yeah,
it's still early days, so we're just like kind of thought storming, brainstorming type.
yeah,
Maybe you
sure,
can
sure,
tell us
sure,
what you
sure.
think.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, you asked about corrective measures. So
Mm,
basically, I would say broadly, if you classify, corrective measures could be on two fronts, basically. So one is the technology front, and the other is the human aspect of it. Because I'm looking at human algorithm interaction. So one could be the human aspect of it, and the other could be the AI, the technology aspect. So one corrective measure could be when you talk about human, so make AI more explainable and make it more transparent, because right now AI is like a black box. We don't know like what goes inside the algorithm, how is it throwing out outputs. So it is like a black box. So make it more explainable, make it more transparent, and there should be more interaction between bureaucrats, managers, consultants who are actually using AI, and the software developers who are actually making AI. So there should be free flow of information, and bureaucrats, IAS officers, these people should actually know what is inside that box, what is inside ChatGPT, what is inside, what is happening in crime mapping, analytics, and predictive system. So make it more explainable, and hence by making it explainable, you come up with curriculum design. You change the curriculum when you train bureaucrats or when you train managers. You change the curriculum. You bring in AI ethics, and you bring in how to analyze AI. Actually, people know how to analyze data. So we have this stream called as data analytics, but people don't know how to analyze AI. So probably we can have a field like AI analytics. Like a human will be there who will be analyzing, various outputs that AI is throwing at us. Right now, we are just doing data, and in future, we may require another stream, AI analytics and AI ethics, AI bias experts. So if we can have that kind of curriculum, and if we can train human beings, if we can train our managers, bureaucrats along that line, so that could be one corrective measure, because that would, in a way, that would bring fairness in a way. Because when that well-informed human is interacting with a biased algorithm, then there would be some kind of correction in the final judgment that the person makes. So in that way, that could be one corrective measure. On other hand, I said technology front. So basically, we are trying to do that only. So that is why we brought coded morality bias. We brought in coded morality in our algorithms. So we are trying to do that. So we are trying to, and we can bring in certain other corrective measures. And like for instance, we can have an in-house, based on the society. preparation of algorithms by indigenous engineers in indigenous languages, those who understand the society, and the software engineers are also people from underrepresented communities who actually they are empathetic. So we can have very beautiful algorithms in a way. So we can move towards beautiful algorithms or fair and responsible algorithms if we so these could be like broadly these could be I think two corrective measures on two fronts that we can take. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
No,
all.
that's really good to hear that. In fact, I think this might be your future as well in terms of your career, right? Because I can just
Yeah.
imagine that already. But I'm just thinking, I mean, just to summarize what you said, right? So basically, you're saying something like, just like the judiciary system, you have an overriding human
Mhm.
system that's trying to be self-correcting or on top of
Yeah.
the algorithm. I mean, the AI algorithm itself. That's really good. I mean, that's a good idea. I
Right.
think we should. I mean, I think we'll definitely include this in the paper, but obviously you can pick it up and
Mhm.
build it by yourself. I mean, you're by all rights, you have the ideas here to also implement, right? And I think the kind of capacity building,
Mhm.
which is like the right word for it, but more like the high end capacity
Right.
building for to understand what the algorithm is and how it works and how do you
Right.
interfere in it at a point where it actually matters, right? And then the code and morality,
Right.
what you mentioned. I have a question on code and morality in a bit, but I'll just
Mhm.
I mean, that's one thing. So to summarize that, that was a really good point. I think the second point you said that bring it. I think we actually spoke to a social scientist yesterday. He mentioned that like bring in
Mhm.
at the design stage itself, bring in diversity, right, and then bring in teams. So that's the
Mhm.
thing that he also mentioned. So I think we all like overlapping. So many of the
Mhm.
interviews, I'm happy to hear that see that we are also coming to certain conclusions that I think overall all the experts agree on certain things. Of course, the things that they
Mhm.
don't agree
Right.
on is the one that we don't understand. Nobody understands. But the ones that we agree on, I think it's already coming out. So that's really, I think, useful for our paper. So just in terms of
Mhm.
code and morality,
Right.
let me just ask you, say for example, right, you're working with the government.
Mhm.
So I mean, just again brainstorming. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but just say like what
Mhm.
happened in social media, in regulating social media and stuff like that. It's still a big black box. I mean, me and
Right.
Rajeshwari also wrote about it, and especially on the digital policy, it's still not come out right. I mean, they tried to do that for the last
Mhm.
5 6 years, and it's still not like there's no one rule law that everybody can face. But we're having scams on a daily basis, and we're having all kinds of abuse and
Mhm.
digital abuse and stuff like that.
Right.
But anyway, that's one story. So we are already moving to the next stage, which is AI, and using AI to maybe even what do you call that? Distort your elections or distort your political system,
Mhm.
your bureaucracy, your hiring
Right.
systems. You work in the hiring
Right.
HR system, so you know how bias can come in, and you use an AI system that you buy from, say, IBM or something. It could be inherently biased, and you're already hiring again the
Mhm.
same cast or the same people that because they are the ones who fit in.
Mhm.
And then for a low end job, you're hiring the same
Right.
people who fit in,
Right.
right? So, say, I mean,
Mhm.
for a non untouchable or whatever from for the last 70 years, nothing's maybe changed for them, right? We could argue that. I mean, I think we can argue that both ways, academics. But let's not go into that. But I'm just saying, if that's the case, how do you see, for example, the main point I'm trying to ask you is like, how do you see this coded, like say coded ethics or coded justice or ethical
Mhm.
AI
Coded
being in
morality.
the hands of the private sector?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
not being
Yeah.
regulated by the government. So it's actually an efficiency model being run by efficiency, but everybody's using
Mhm.
it to access it. And that's like in economics, that's a big time problem because you have the efficiency system running the whole
Mhm.
the system. Like for example, you have in India,
Right.
like software the software industry is exporting and getting all the credit for India's growth. But majority of the farmers or the people who are working their daily tasks and they're not getting any credit
Mhm.
for their work, right? So that there's this injustice that happens between equity and efficiency.
Right.
So in efficiency, again, this
Right.
goes into the private
Right.
sector, and then in terms of the equity, in
Mhm.
terms of government trying to make it a level playing field for everyone, AI is being controlled by private sector and they're charging
Mhm.
you for it. Blah blah blah. So do you? I asked actually Professor, like, but let me ask you one thing: like coded justice, do you see
Mhm.
at some point there will be government intervention? That's the first point. The second point is, do you see at some point like what we did for Rupee, trying to get rid of visas and all that? We might have our own open source model, right? So that might be a little more inclusive, more free, funded by the government. It might take too long, but what are your ideas on this?
Mhm. Yeah, so basically, you are right. Actually, when private sector uses this coded justice, uh, it is only talking about its own efficiency, actually. So, and if you don't regulate it, then private sector, they can have their own inbuilt, algorithm. So, who will decide like justice? Like that is a big question to ask. Like justice, like what is justice, and who will decide like what is just, what is fair? If you give it only in the hands of private sector, they might misuse it, and because they are working for their own shareholders and they just want profit, right? If you talk about Amazon or anyone, so they are just seeking their own profit and efficiency. So one thing is that like who will decide what is moral? And just like I told you, morality could differ as per the country and the society. So then it will differ as per the private sector, the company. When you talk of Amazon, so I have heard that in Amazon the management is very strict and it is more customer centric and less employee centric. So since you talked about recruitment, so that is why Amazon used to hire people using algorithms in the US. And it was actually hiring mostly men who are experts in software engineering, and it was keeping aside women. It was rejecting the resumes of women who were experts in software engineering. So then Amazon self-corrected because it came up in various media and journal articles came up on that. So it was not yet regulated by government, but since it came up in media, so Amazon self-corrected and banned the algorithm, and now they don't use the algorithm anymore in the US. So yes, so in that way, it can be misused because certain companies, they are employee centric and less customer centric. For example, Tata, or several other companies. So it will depend on the morality and the mission, the vision, the values of the company, of the specific company. So then the morality, we will have to study morality from the lens of the management of that particular company. Then, we cannot just say how coded justice will benefit. Then we will have to deep dive in that company itself, whether we are talking of Microsoft, because now Microsoft has become very mature, and the management style of Microsoft is very different from management style of say Amazon. Amazon is still very cutthroat.